Video Killed the Radio Star was released by the Buggles in 1979, just ahead of the dawn of MTV and snot-nosed predictions that music videos would be the final death blow for radio. More than 40 years later, the sentiment hasn't aged particularly well, as music videos long ago lost their luster, and terrestrial radio remains an effective marketing tool for both brand advertisers and pop stars alike. In fact, in 2022, 82% of Americans ages 12 and older listen to terrestrial radio in a given week, according to Nielsen, while nearly half of U.S. adults say they sometimes or often get news from radio, just after TV. And with the typical radio ad load 12 minutes for every hour, I don't think terrestrial radio is going anywhere anytime soon. However, it's radio's digital offspring, podcasting, that is demanding more and more attention and budget from brand advertisers. And for marketers who know how to take advantage of the medium, podcasts can be a powerful way to connect with consumers. Podcasts have been around since 2004 or so, and were put on the media map in 2014 with the introduction of the Serial podcast, focusing on investigative journalism. But it's only in the last few years, following a pandemic boom, that podcasting is able to draw a lot more attention from brand advertisers. Compared to terrestrial radio, with a fixed number of stations, podcasting swims in countless lanes, giving brand advertisers a growing ability for contextual and behavioral targeting. There are roughly 5 million podcasts, or 3 million, depending on whom you ask. No matter the number, there were 74 million weekly podcast listeners in the U.S. last year, according to Edison data. Unsurprisingly, the ad dollars are following the earlobes. Ad spending is projected to increase 25% this year to $2.7 billion and nearly double to $4 billion by 2025. That's according to the Interactive Advertising Bureau and PwC. And while listenership is starting to slow, podcasting is still growing at double-digit rates, with companies like Spotify pegging the medium at a potential $20 billion opportunity. Even so, podcasting remains a tough sell for advertisers, says Tom Webster, co-founder of Sounds Profitable, which covers the podcasting industry. Webster, a recent guest on the A&A Champions of Growth podcast, says agencies need to do a much better job of selling podcasts to buyers and advertisers. For instance, according to a Sounds Profitable survey of 2,000 Americans aged 18 or older, consumers find podcasting ads more relevant than other media, including YouTube and network TV. In the critical metric of time spent, 28% of the respondents to the survey spent at least 5 to 10 hours a week listening to podcasts. That's compared to 22% for radio and 21% for TV. And what's more, for youth-obsessed advertisers, heavy users of podcasting are nearly a generation younger than heavy users of network TV or radio. Brian Berletta, co-founder of Sounds Profitable, says podcasting appeals to savvy listeners who specifically avoid advertising in other mediums. They know what they like, they know what content they want, and they know what they want to purchase. The beauty of podcast advertising is host-read ads, which have a clear distinction from traditionally delivered ads. When a host is endorsing a product or service, listeners don't consider it an ad. They consider it content, and not interruptive. As the market matures, it's important to realize that podcasting runs on a dual track, both as an advertising vehicle and a potential anchor for your content marketing programming. Having your own branded podcast is like one big advertisement that's inviting to your audience. With that in mind, here are 3 recommendations for launching your own branded podcast. Number 1, build versus buy. Marketers need to weigh if they want to build their own podcast network in-house or outsource the production. You also need to decide whether the podcast is designed to raise awareness, increase reach, drive lead gen, or perhaps a combination of those metrics. Number 2, start small. Launch a few pilot episodes and distribute them on one of your existing marketing channels to gauge initial interest. To make sure it's a good fit for the brand, don't hesitate to audition a few different hosts or try a few different formats. Number 3, ramp up spending. Be prepared to spend more on marketing than producing the podcast itself. Because you're starting from scratch, you're going to have to do a really good job promoting the show to hit some initial goals and to see if there's the opportunity to scale the show. Podcasts are also a great way to repurpose your content. You can take the original audio programming and turn it into videos for your YouTube channel, articles for your website, social media assets, and event materials. Producing a branded podcast requires a major commitment, of course, in terms of time, talent, and budget. The C-suite may be right to look at podcasts with a somewhat jaundiced eye. The top 1% of podcasts receive 99% of downloads. It's hard to move the dial, but it's also getting harder for advertisers to ignore the opportunity podcasts present in terms of developing new customers and alternative revenue streams. Podcasts play into a future in which conversation, curiosity, and thought leadership, not selling, are the new currency. Brands that get ahead of podcasting are going to be uniquely positioned to win over consumers and drive business results. You just need to get them to listen. For the A&A Champions of Growth podcast, I'm Matthew Schwartz.